President Trump often argues that he's not moved by press reports or criticism, but that's his words. If you watch what his administration does, time and again, facts and pressure do shift things. Today, Trump administration on defense over its treatment of migrant children, and it's acting to remove 300 from a Texas federal facility that had horrific conditions, 10-year-old children taking care of sick toddlers because there was no one else to, untreated flu and lice outbreaks. And on this program, we've reported on the Trump DOJ going to court to argue that they want to be able to legally deny those very kids who are in detention soap, toothbrushes, blankets. Now, few politicians in any party want to be seen supporting that kind of position, but it is factually the current position of the Trump administration. Vice President Pence just conceded that, quote, of course children should be provided toothbrushes and blankets, and then he goes on to try to pretend he doesn't know that he and his boss are doing the exact opposite.
Aren't toothbrushes and blankets and medicine, basic conditions for kids, aren't they a part of how the United States of America, the Trump administration, treats children?
Well, of course they are, Jake.
Well, the lawyer was arguing the opposite.
I can't speak to what that lawyer was saying.
Yeah. We have money to give toothpaste and soap and blankets to these kids in this facility in El Paso County right now.
Of course we do.
So why aren't we?
My point is, it's all a part of the appropriations process. Congress needs to provide additional support to deal with the crisis at our southern border.
I turn to former acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal, who's argued dozens of cases before the Supreme Court and leads our opening argument series. And Neil, I want to get right into it. Take a listen to that very Trump lawyer who was just referenced getting grilled on this in court. And this clip, not only did we hit it on the beat, it's also gone viral online.
If you're putting people into a crowded room to sleep on a concrete floor with an aluminum foil blanket on top of them, that doesn't comply with the agreement. I mean, it may be that they don't get super thread counts Egyptian linens. I get that. But the testimony that the district judge believed was, it's really cold. I find that inconceivable that the government would say that that is safe and sanitary.
If you don't have a toothbrush, if you don't have soap, if you don't have a blanket, it's not safe and sanitary. Well, wouldn't everybody agree to that? Do you agree to that?
Well, I think there's fair reason to find that those things may be part of safe and sanitary.
Maybe are.
Neil, there's layers to this. I want to hear all of your views. One thought that came to my mind is even good lawyers can struggle if the position they're asked to defend is basically empty, immoral, indefensible. I wonder what you thought of what we learned from watching that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that struggling was the least that should have happened there. I mean, that was a horrific policy decision by the Trump administration to say that safe and sanitary conditions don't include toothbrushes, don't include blankets, forcing people to sleep on concrete floors with only a sheet of aluminum foil over them as a blanket, saying that sleep is not part of a safe and sanitary condition. I mean, all this stuff is horrific. And, I do think that the Trump administration deserves all the condemnation that they received in the wake of that. These are not even the Geneva Conventions require prisoners of war to get toothbrushes and soap. I mean, the idea that we can't do that, or what the vice president said, the appropriations process prevents it, that's just flatly wrong. And the idea that he would laugh and talk about this stuff is so unbecoming of a president of the United States. And coming from this administration, which can find money anywhere, they declare emergencies for all kinds of bogus things like building a wall. But when it comes to finding toothbrushes for 5-year-old children who need it, they can't find it. That's just so implausible to me. Any third grader can read the federal budget and find the dollars for this without resorting to all their crazy executive power schemes, which they do for things like the wall. But to come from this administration, it's already, a little bit rich.
I also want to get your sort of views and fact check on the Trump claim that he's got to do this stuff because of either past precedent or past presidents. Take a look.
We've ended separation. Under President Obama, you had separation. I was the one that ended it. Now, I said one thing. When I ended it, I said, here's what's going to happen. More families are going to come up, and that's what's happened. but they're really coming up for the economics. But once you ended the separation, but I ended separation. I inherited separation from President Obama.
Neil?
Oh my God, where to begin? So the idea that he ended separation, I mean, right now, these are separated children. That's what these stories are about. So I don't know what kind of facts he's getting, but nobody thinks that's right. And the idea that he inherited this from Obama is flatly wrong. I think President Trump has separated over 3,000 children in the course of his administration. No other president came even close to that. President Obama basically came in and recognized there were two different goals of our immigration system here. One's humanitarian, to protect the children who are separated. The other is deterrence, the idea that if you do too much for them, then they'll come in. And he quickly realized that deterrence was just a bogus rationale, that these people were fleeing horrific conditions in their home countries, and deterrence wasn't going to work. And so he moved to a humanitarian policy, spending billions of dollars on shelters and things like that to make sure that these children would be treated safely. Not all the time, but I think far better than Trump. Trump has made it his kind of raison d'etre to say, absolutely not, I'm going to focus only on deterrence, the one thing we know doesn't work. And so he has said in his policies that we're going to make things as horrific as possible so that these folks won't come. And by the way, Ari, that hasn't worked at all. We've had record numbers, and you just heard one of your guests talking about this, record numbers of people trying to come because deterrence doesn't work. The only thing you can do here is try and be humanitarian. And, this is a president that separated a 4-month-old baby from their parents, whose, 6 children have died just since September in custody of these folks. If you go back a decade, not a single child died. So inherited from Obama? I don't think so.
And lastly, briefly, it's the cameras in the courtroom that made that clip go viral. What do you think that tells us about transparency in the court system? Because sometimes people don't even know what's going down.
Yeah, it's so important. People say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but when it comes to the law, a picture's worth like 10,000 words because laws, frankly, makes most people's eyes glaze over when you talk about consent decrees and declaratory judgments and the like. And I think when you see that clip, and you see the cold, hard truth of what the Trump administration is arguing, boy, that really resonates with the American public. And this is all because this Court of Appeals in San Francisco televises its arguments. And so that's why we're all able to see it. Most federal courts don't. The U.S. Supreme Court, tellingly, there are no cameras in that courtroom, even though these are the people's courts. And so I hope that we use this as an illustration of really the power of the digital world. And, we now think in terms of pictures and video, Instagram and the like, YouTube. We don't think as much in terms of a cold transcript. And if you just listened to that DOJ lawyer and watched her, you had come off very differently than if you were reading a cold legal transcript.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think you make a great point. And the judges. I mean, judges, of course, are quite careful. And there'd be many arguments that wouldn't become viral precisely because you wouldn't even know where they were going. Here, though, the sheer human gasps from people who are judges but are also people about.
And Ari, I'd say one thing. One of
ahead.
those judges was Wally Tashima, who actually had been interned in a Japanese-American camp at the age of 7 during World War II. And you could tell when you were watching him that that experience seared him. And when you have these reports that are going on, like today's, the New Yorker report on Saturday, showing that children are having to take care of other children, 10-year-olds taking care of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds because nobody else will, and eventually the 10-year-olds get bored, so no one's taking care of the 2-year-olds. I mean, these are not the things that our country has stood for, and these are human beings. And what this administration is doing is such a grave human catastrophe. They deserve all the condemnation they've gotten.
Neil Katyal, appreciate your expertise and your clarity. MSNBC.com/opening arguments is where this and our past discussions with Neil are. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.